So, like I said, the internet's exploding. People are calling for boycotts, bans, cancellations, sacrificial burnings, all of the normal stuff you would see on Twitter/X. And it all is being thrown at the devs of Helldivers 2 right now. Now, in case you're not already familiar, basically what this is all about is linking a PlayStation account to your Steam account to continue playing Helldivers. People might not be aware of this, but like this has been the policy since day one. They just temporarily disabled the requirement because of technical issues at launch. But they said eventually we're gonna bring it back and you're gonna need a PlayStation account to play this game. So we're gonna do that, just be ready. It seems like a lot of people either didn't know about that, forgot about it, whatever. But now they are in a position where they've announced that due to technical issues, the launch of Helldivers, where we allowed the linking requirements for Steam accounts to PlayStation Network account to be temporarily optional. The grace period will now expire. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values of safety and security provided on PlayStation and PlayStation Studio games. This is our main way to protect players from griefing and abuse by enabling the banning of players that engage in this type of behavior. It also allows those players that have been banned the right to appeal. As such, as of May 6th, all new Helldivers 2 players on Steam will be required to connect their Steam account to a PSN account. Current players on Steam will start to see the mandatory login from May 30th and will be required to have a linked Steam page and PlayStation Network account by June 4th. PlayStation Network accounts are free and easy to set up using this link. We understand that while this may be an inconvenience for some of you, this step will help us continue to build the community that we're all proud to be a part of. Many thanks for your continued support of Helldivers 2, Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now, some people have called for boycotts and bans of the game, and people are saying this is illegal and all that stuff. For one, it's been disclosed since day one this would be a thing, so they have that. Two, I understand that somebody might have been ignorant of that fact and might not have known and bought the game not thinking they would need a PSN account. But your ignorance of a policy they had does not mean that they therefore were hiding it or something. So I don't think there's any legal restriction or any legal problem with this. If it was like requiring a paid account that they didn't initially announce, where it's like they sold you the game and then they're like, yeah, and by the way, now you have to pay for a $10 a month account, otherwise you can't play anymore. That would be a huge issue, without a doubt. As for the other stuff, a lot of people just frankly don't want a PlayStation Network account. They're PC gamers and they don't want to have to make a PSN account. I get that. I get that. Just again, the hiccup you run into is that this was always disclosed. Like when I first tried the game, I had to try to connect it to my PSN account before they disconnected the requirement or ceased the requirement because it was causing problems, because you try to log into your PlayStation Network account and the game would just stall out basically. So they removed that requirement, but it was always going to eventually be a thing. And honestly, like I've already told you guys so many times, I'm just so burnt out on the constant calls, especially this year, for boycotts and bans and everything. Like, honestly, to me, I don't see this as like a crazy scandalous event. And I'm trying to figure out what the argument would be that it is really, really bad. Like, people saying that it was false advertising. Well, it wasn't. You just might not have heard about it or you might have forgotten, but this was always disclosed, so it was not hidden or obscured from anybody. I think the initial decision to force connections to the PlayStation Network are annoying, but again, it doesn't change the game itself as far as I can tell. And my understanding, as this guy, Alex, posted, so Misty replied to the comment saying it's to allow us to ban people. That's the sole reason. Community and support for Arrowhead. And basically it sounds like it's a policy that's been set up so that PlayStation can moderate and ban people, not just on the Steam version, but on the PlayStation version, and hard ban you across the board if you do something that's bad. I can't imagine they're having that be like a major issue, but then again, maybe behind the scenes it is. All told, like, Will I not play Helldivers 2 over this? Like, no, I don't think it's that crazy of a deal, because I've known this was coming for ages, and I don't really know why people are acting so shocked about it. But I agree, Magic T-Man. So Magic T-Man brings up exactly what I was about to mention. Where I think there is a very valid concern is with people that cannot make PlayStation Network accounts in their countries. And in this post, there is no discussion or mention of what happens to those players, because there are some countries, I believe it's China. I think, no, Brazil, you can. It was China, like Indonesia. I think there's like a handful of countries where you just can't make a PSN account. And the Philippines, yeah, I think that's it. And for those people, they need to specify, if you cannot create a PSN account in your country, you're not affected by this. Because obviously, like, what are they to do? Like, congrats, you bought the game and you're screwed. So for them, absolutely, there's a question. And either way, I think for those people, either this requirement should be completely bypassed, and they should clarify that and state that very, very plainly, that if you're playing in those countries, it will not affect you, because otherwise you'd just be locked out of the game. Or they need to offer refunds to those players. I think that would be the clear requirement. Yeah, most of Africa, Asia, South America, and some countries in Europe. I know China is one for whatever reason. Either way, they're like any country or any place where you might have purchased this game, and then if this policy will make it so you can't play the game anymore, that is absolutely unacceptable, and they should either make it not a requirement in those areas, which might be the policy, they just didn't state it, or they need to offer refunds for that. And honestly, I would guess that if you require or ask for a refund through Steam, I would guess they probably grant it. If you're like, hey, I can't fulfill the requirement of this new policy, please give me my money back, I would guess Steam probably gives you that. Get out MS Paint. Don't think they're gonna backtrack now. Well, as far as I can tell, this is not an Arrowhead decision. This is a Sony Interactive Entertainment decision, and Sony don't give two bugs what the public response, PR response to these types of things are. Like, they're like, well, it's the policy, suck it up, the honeymoon phase is over. Maybe, I mean, it's with all of this, it just seems like there is a contingent of people within the gaming community right now that are starved for something to rage about. And like, it's just, there's a lot of people that are just hammers in search of a nail. And so when there's something like this, which I think this post is extremely unclear and should clarify for those people that are in areas where you cannot get an account, they should make it very clear, and do, maybe as I'm saying this, they've already posted like an update clarifying that those people, no, not yet, but they should clarify that those people who can't fulfill this obligation or requirement should get a refund or not be affected by it. That needs to be clarified immediately. But if you're in the US, this was always the policy. This was always going to be a thing. So it's not false advertising. It's not like they're charging you money. They didn't tell you that they were going to charge you. I just don't think it's that big of a deal for those people. Yeah, people assume you can just make an account for any of these services. I, for example, can't buy a Steam Deck to my location, even though I can't make, or even though I can make a Steam account. Very frustrating. I also can't buy directly from Sony's online store. Yeah, no, I think with all this, it just needs to be very, very clear. Indigo says the community manager said they're chasing Sony for an answer. Sony is ghosting Arrowhead right now. It was announced that Helldivers 2 players on Steam would be required to connect a PSN account in order to continue playing the game. The reaction from players to the news went exactly as you'd expect. As of publishing the article, the game has seen nearly 37,000 negative reviews on May 3rd alone, according to SteamDB. It's, goodness gracious, there's a massive package being delivered, and it's not mine. It's something that Helldivers 2 developers at Arrowhead Game Studios were aware of, and it's even gotten the attention of the studio's CEO, Jan Palstedt. He said, quote, well, I guess it's warranted. Sorry, everyone, for how this all transpired, he said via Twitter. I hope we will make it up and regain the trust by providing a continued great game experience. He said, ouch, right in the review score. I just want to make great games, is what he said. As far as the decision behind the policy goes, the game's community manager said on the game's official Discord server that it was a Sony decision, not Arrowhead. Quote, First of all, it's Sony's decision, not ours, he said. Secondly, we don't have all the details about region-related issues yet. We're chasing Sony to get more info. The new Helldivers 2 PSN account rules go into enforcement on May 6th for new players, while current players on Steam will have to get their accounts linked by June 6th. Beyond this, I mean, the big question for me is whether or not exceptions will be made for people that can't, like, literally can't make PSN accounts. Somebody was saying in chat, if you're in the Philippines, you apparently can't make a PSN account. So if you're in the Philippines, do you just not get to play the game you bought anymore when that day comes? Like, they have to clarify that. And if they either void the requirement for those people and make it so they can just continue playing without having a PSN account linked, great. Or if they are like, yeah, you will lose access to the game, sucks to suck. If they say something like that, then they should be required to issue refunds. And I think Steam would back them up. I think Steam would force refunds as well, because it's like, you can't just sell people a game and then take it away later, unless you're Ubisoft. That's a whole other thing. As for everything else, like, I do fully buy that this is a Sony thing. I said earlier in the stream, my guess is that this is probably done from Sony's perspective to boost PlayStation like network numbers. I think that they want PSN user numbers to look even better than what they currently look like. And so they're like, oh, well, we'll just require everyone playing Helldivers to sign up for it. And this is something they've been clear about. You know, this has been a policy since launch. They just made a limited time exception to requiring a PSN account when the game launched for technical reasons. But I guess people forgot about it or thought that they would just like not bother with it. So I'm trying to figure out what like the core complaint is, because on the one hand, it's like, you could say that some people were saying it was false advertising because they were told they could play the game without a PSN account. But they said from the very beginning that you would need it eventually. They were just delaying it for technical reasons. So that doesn't really hold up. And then you can say, well, players might not want to have a PSN account. And it's like, okay, but they said since the beginning you would eventually need one. So if you don't want to play the game, or if you want to like boycott it, whatever, that's totally fine. But this all seems to just be a PlayStation ploy to get more users on their PSN stuff to make investors happier. And I think that that's the whole thing. No, it's, to be clear, it's a PlayStation Network account, not a PlayStation Plus account. So it is a PlayStation account that you tie to this. So if you, for example, got banned in Helldivers on PC, you'd also be banned on PlayStation through that PlayStation Network account. And then what they're also going to do is they're going to go and they're going to say, look, we're able to track all these players through the PlayStation Network, and we have more players on here than ever before, blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets excited. Investors give us money. I think that's the main thing here. What is the point of boosting the population on PSN if it's not making them extra money? Well, I'd say it potentially is, because if they're playing a PlayStation Network game, they can show that there's all these people. They can track data for microtransaction spend on Helldivers, both on PC and PlayStation Network across both. There's a handful of things that they'd want. And I mean, at the end of the day, most of these companies just want to show metrics go up and number get bigger. And that's all they're really looking to do. And if they can look at it and be like, look, the total number of users with PlayStation Network accounts is bigger than it was a year ago. It's grown. That for investors is unfortunately like, oh, that sounds good to me. So they're faking statistics basically. Well, I mean, it won't really be faking because they will be actually getting people to sign up for the PlayStation Network account. It's not people that want to sign up for a PlayStation Network account, but they are getting new signups. So it's not really faking the numbers. It's just strong-arming people into it. And for a lot of people, I think the sentiment is that they feel as though the game's being held hostage unless you sign up for this account that a lot of PC gamers don't have and don't want. And I think that's the sentiment that's being reflected here. I've told you guys many times over, I'm just kind of sick of calls for boycotts every 10 minutes. So like, because this was communicated ahead of time and has been known since launch, like this to me is not that crazy of a story. I'm like, yeah, I thought we all knew this already. I thought this was common knowledge, but I guess it wasn't. Like, do I like it? No, I'd prefer if I didn't have to connect anything to it and I just pressed play and the game worked. Like, that's what I would prefer. But I don't think it's fair for me to be like, everybody, mass downvote, let's boycott the game, let's cancel them. Like, yeah, it's annoying. I agree, Chris. It's annoying And yeah, Jim, I agree. You're allowed to complain about it, but where I draw the line is like the people that are like calling for mandatory refunds and stuff like that. Especially because at the end of the day, it seems like this is a PlayStation problem. This is a Sony problem. This is not an Arrowhead problem. And for them, I mean, I'm sure it sucks for them that they're like, we've been doing everything so right and people have been loving the game, eating it up. And now like gamers are very upset because of this. Like it's for Arrowhead, it certainly sucks because it's not their decision to make. Like they probably don't care. They're probably like, yeah, no, we're just glad you're playing the game, but it's a Sony thing. And it always gets tough when it's like the developers get caught in the crosshairs of a dispute between gamers and the publisher. Because like the developers weren't necessarily doing anything wrong. It was just the publisher being unreasonable or pushing too hard or this or that. So I think you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You want to make your opinion known and be like, hey, PlayStation, this isn't cool. But also you don't want to hurt the developers in the process because they didn't do anything wrong. You know, they've just been... They're just doing their jobs. And to be fair, they've done a really good job with it. The region thing is BS. Oh, I agree. No, the one thing that without a doubt Sony needs to address yesterday, or I guess 9 hours ago when this was dropped, is what happens for those people that are in regions where you literally can't fulfill this obligation or this requirement. Because as of right now, it's just not clear. It's like, so do I just not get to play the game that I bought anymore? Because I can't sign up for an account because of the country I live in? That's not cool. That's like, why are you selling it in this country then? And, you know, I guess I'd have to look because I guess even at launch, the game probably would have launched if they're able to buy it now. If you live in like the Philippines, the game would have launched in the Philippines initially requiring a PSN account, but then they removed that requirement at launch because they wanted more people to get in and they didn't want that barrier. And now they're going back and requiring it. So I guess all this time they've been selling a game that they have a requirement that can't be fulfilled. It just seems like it wasn't thought out. It seems like they just kind of forgot about the minutia of it and are like, oh wait, yeah, we got to think this through.